Aloha Commanders, and welcome to Later Tonight with Dr. Iron Chef, hosted on Aloha Diz.
Please be sure to follow on Twitch and subscribe on YouTube for all the latest content.
Today we discuss the new video from Star Trek Fleet Command, and there's definitely a lot of excitement building around this one. We're talking about the new Flashpoint preview.
Yeah, it's generating quite the buzz.
And it sounds like, this isn't just your standard update. They're calling it a complete reimagination. Events, missions, aiming for a, quote, living galaxy.
That's the core concept, yeah. Flashpoint is this new multi-month series of events. It's designed to introduce players to the Star Trek world in a really fresh way. And fundamentally, it's meant to change how the in-game events and the missions actually interact with each other.
Okay.
The big idea. Expand STFC into a genuinely dynamic world, something that reacts.
Right, dynamic. So our mission for you in this deep dive is pretty clear. We're going to unpack exactly how Flashpoint promises to transform your experience. Turn it into this dynamic, evolving universe that's driven directly by what you do, by player actions, and community collaboration. Okay, let's unpack this. This big idea, this living galaxy. What does that actually mean in practice, and why is it such a big deal for Star Trek Fleet Command?
Well, historically, the game's universe has been, relatively static, fixed maps mostly. Any real dynamism, the feeling of change, it usually came from specific scheduled events or, direct player versus player stuff, fights.
Right, the scheduled incursions or territory battles.
Exactly. Flashpoint aims to flip that script. It makes the universe itself dynamic, responsive, it shifts, it evolves based on what's actually happening within it, driven by the players collectively.
So the world itself changes.
That's the goal. Think of it less like a static backdrop and more like an active participant. It reacts to what you all do. For an MMO strategy game, that's a pretty significant leap.
Yeah, definitely.
Most online worlds, their maps are fixed, right? For STFC to promise a universe that truly reacts, that shifts based on collective player action, well, it introduces this level of emergent storytelling and persistent consequences. It really pushes what a living game can actually be.
Okay, that sounds really different. So how does Flashpoint fundamentally differ from, say, all the previous STFC events, the narrative arcs we've seen before? Players have fought big bosses, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. But this is a significant departure from those typical one-off boss fights or events contained in just one system. Flashpoint kind of envisions the entire universe as something you, the player base, have to actively push back against. You're not just handling like an isolated threat in some corner of the map.
Okay.
Instead, players will be driving back invasions not just in one system, but potentially across the whole galaxy map.
Wow, okay, the whole map.
Yeah. It's deeply event-focused. It's designed to get you involved in a whole bunch of new events and really foster interaction between the event system and the mission system. It's about facing a persistent, evolving threat that actually changes the fabric of the game world. It forces a much bigger, more strategic response from everyone.
You think about 4X games, strategy games in general. Usually it's all competition, right? Conflict, war.
That's the stereotype for sure.
But we've heard the STFC community is, well, different. There's this surprising side to it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's actually fascinating. While, a lot of 4X and strategy titles really lean into that raw competition, STFC's community has organically grown into something, well, unique. There's this whole segment of players, a big one, who are incredibly diplomatic. They're open, constructive communicators.
Really diplomatic in a 4X game.
I know, right? The amount of self-imposed rules, the cooperative structures that have just sprung up within the community, the way they approach new stuff, talk about challenges, how they come together, honestly, it's phenomenal. And this strong community aspect, this sort of inherent drive to collaborate and build things together, that was actually a key driver behind creating Flashpoint.
So the developers saw this and leaned into it.
Exactly. It's partly the Star Trek ethos, maybe, but it's also just a really bold, interesting direction for a strategy game that usually thrives on, crushing your opponents.
But that's a really strong foundation to build on. So what does this unique community spirit mean for you, the player, in Flashpoint?
Yeah.
How does this new series leverage that collaborative energy? How does it drive the story and the gameplay?
Well, Flashpoint is specifically designed to deepen that community experience, but carefully, right? Without sort of trampling on what players have already built themselves.
Okay.
You'll absolutely need to work together as an alliance, definitely, but maybe even across entire servers to push back these hostile forces. Like, take the rebel Klingon group, House Horok. That's a new faction they're introducing. Pretty volatile. They won't be defeated by just one player or one alliance going it alone.
So coordination is crucial.
Massively. The intensity of your collective participation, right? The amount of effort everyone invests in specific events across the galaxy. That will be directly reflected in the world. You'll see it in the galaxy view.
So you can actually see the progress or lack thereof.
Precisely. This isn't just about your individual score or progress bar. Your actions as an alliance, maybe even as an entire server, will have a direct, visible impact on the universe. It affects the factions in it, specific characters maybe, even things like resource nodes.
Wow.
Your collective effort literally reshapes the game world in ways. It creates these shared objectives that really foster that collaboration we talked about. We've already seen examples in the past, right? Players forming server-wide peace treaties to focus on a big threat.
Yeah, temporary truces.
Or collaboratively deciding, okay, we all need to focus on these resource nodes to hit a shared goal, even if it slows down individual progress for a bit. That kind of deep, organic collaboration was clearly pivotal in their thinking.
This sounds like it's going to be a really complex, evolving story then, not just a quick event that's over in a week. How is the narrative actually going to unfold for players over time with Flashpoint? Is it a short burst or more drawn out?
It's definitely more drawn out. Flashpoint is structured into 3 separate arcs, but they're all connected, united by one big overarching idea.
Okay, 3 arcs.
Yeah. There's a main story that's going to last a full 6 months.
6 months. What?
Yeah, it's a commitment. And within that 6-month story, there will be 2-month subdivisions, each covering specific aspects of that larger storyline. And what makes it potentially more complex and hopefully engaging is that your actions throughout these arcs, they'll have real cascading ramifications, consequences that ripple through the entire half-year period.
So what you do in month 1 could still be affecting things in month 5.
Exactly. It could affect the landscape, the state of different factions, the challenges you face later on. It's all about building in that sense of persistent, long-term consequence for the community's actions.
That really does deepen the stakes. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty then. Flashpoint Part 1. What's that initial experience like when you first log in? And then what about this table flip moment the developers hinted at? I'm really curious about how it goes from normal to suddenly very not normal.
Right. The table flip. So Flashpoint Part 1, and actually Part 2 as well, they introduced this new resource. It's unstable, apparently quite powerful, and it's crash-landed somewhere in the galaxy. It's apparently so impactful, it's even shifted some existing faction borders on the map to accommodate it.
Change the map borders.
Okay, yeah. So initially, day 1, day 2, it starts out looking like a typical day. Players are engaging in their usual stuff, resource gathering, that familiar mining loop, right? Doing their regular activities around this new resource.
Business as usual, but with a new shiny thing.
Pretty much. But then, day 3 hits, and the status quo shifts dramatically. That's the table flip moment. This rebel Klingon group, House Horok, this new volatile faction, they basically go rogue, they swoop in and capture the systems where this new resource landed.
Whoa, okay, so they just take it over.
Yep. Suddenly it's not yours anymore.
A table flip. I can just imagine players logging in on day 3, looking at their screen and going, wait, what?
So that's the moment you have to band together. That, uh-oh, something is definitely wrong here feeling.
Precisely. That's the trigger.
Yeah.
At that stage, you'll have to band together to push them back. And the key thing is, this isn't just, rerunning an old event where you already know the solution. They're aiming for genuine novelty, genuine interest here.
Because the situation itself is changing.
Exactly. The actual setting you're playing in is dynamic now. Hostiles are moving around differently. Maybe those resource mines operate under new rules. Factions are grabbing extra space. New factions might even show up on the board unexpectedly.
Right.
You need to push back this new force that's been introduced into the universe.
Yeah.
And it's not just you. It's your whole server, your region, potentially the entire game working together.
Yeah.
You are fighting back against this new force, and the environment itself is reacting and changing around you as you do it. It definitely sounds like it's designed to grab your attention hard, make you feel that immediate impact. What stands out to you about how players might react to this dynamic shift? What's the kind of emotional journey the developers are hoping players go on?
Well, I think the goal, first off, is for players to be genuinely excited about this new resource. exploring it, interacting with it, figuring out what it
An
does.
individual discovery phase.
Right. Then, when Hasselrock invades, when that table flip happens, the aim is absolutely for you to have that moment of, wait a minute, what
Yeah.
just happened here? The galaxy looks different. There's a new faction border that literally wasn't there 5 minutes ago.
That jolt.
Exactly. That initial jolt of, this is not normal, that surprise, followed quickly by the excitement or maybe the urgency to find out more, to figure out what to do. That's key to the experience they seem to be crafting. It's about making the universe feel less predictable, more alive, and forcing you and everyone else to adapt on the fly.
That immediate shock definitely sounds like an impactful way to kick off a whole new era for the game. And it feels like this is just the start, right, of creating this truly dynamic universe.
Hmm.
If we connect Flashpoint to the bigger picture, what's the long-term vision here? Beyond this 6-month arc, how do they plan to keep this living environment feeling going?
Yeah, listening to the developers, they sound incredibly enthusiastic about fostering this living environment over the next few years, not just the next few months. Looking beyond Flashpoint, players might expect, or well, they hinted at things like transdimensional shifts.
Transconventional, okay, that opens possibilities.
Right. Bringing in maybe guests from unexpected parts of space, perhaps elements from other Star Trek series, or even entirely new threats we haven't encountered before. And naturally, that would likely come with new resources to find, new mechanics to learn, new ways to work together to fight off these enemies and, restore balance.
So constantly evolving threats and tools.
That seems to be the core belief, yeah.
Mm.
Making the universe feel consistently alive, surprising, and genuinely responsive to what the players are doing. Continually shaking things up with new challenges, new opportunities that ripple through the game world. It's not just about adding DLC or new ships, it's about evolving the fundamental nature of the game world itself.
That really is an ambitious vision, making you, the player, feel like your actions, collective actions, have real, lasting impact on this huge, dynamic galaxy. A galaxy that keeps surprising you, keeps challenging you. It's quite a remarkable evolution, especially for a strategy game. So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, Commander?
Flashpoint, it really isn't just another update, is it?
No, not at all.
It feels like a fundamental shift, a move towards a living, breathing Star Trek galaxy where your choices, your server's choices, genuinely shape the universe around you, creating consequences you'll actually live with long after the initial event banners come down. And it definitely raises a pretty important question, doesn't it? In a game universe that's constantly evolving, constantly reacting based on player collaboration, what new forms of community are going to emerge? What new strategies, what kinds of diplomacy even, will spring up from this dynamic battlefield? How will your collective ingenuity rise to meet these constantly changing challenges? It'll be fascinating to watch.
Be sure to follow Dr. Iron Chef on Twitch and subscribe to Aloha Diz on YouTube.
Mahalo for joining us.